Hello, innovators, entrepreneurs, and risk takers. Welcome to another episode of Web3 with Sam Kamani podcast. And today, on this podcast episode, I'm interviewing Tae Oh from Glua or Spacecoin. And he is going to be sharing with us about what they are doing at Spacecoin and how they are building something which is at the cutting edge of space industry, the blockchain crypto finance industry, as well as telecommunication. They have the ambitious goal of connecting hundreds of millions of people in future and connecting them to internet and as well as banking them, because a lot of these people in remote areas, they neither have internet nor are they banks. They are the unbanked. So banking the unbanked and providing internet to hundreds of millions of people, that's their amazing ambitious goal. And he is here to share with us what challenges he's facing in launching satellites, building satellites, as well as a whole lot of other things or whole lot of other trends that he is seeing in this space. As always, nothing that we talk about on this podcast episode should be taken as investment advice, and please leave a review after listening to this episode. And with all that out of the way, let's get into it. So, Tay, welcome to the show. It is an absolute honor and pleasure to be interviewing you today. I'm looking forward to our conversation, especially you guys are doing so many interesting things with Spacecoin and Glua and everything. Just to get started, how did you get involved in all things Web3 and blockchain?
Well, thanks for inviting Sam. I'm happy to meet you and your audience. I encountered coin while I was in senior year in my college around 2010. And it fascinated me because I saw Bitcoin as a new technology that creates very novel properties in digital space. So when I think about my journey as a consumer or a part of the ecosystem as in the digital space, I think there was a couple of very major events that happened that to change the landscape. The first one is the invention of personal computer. Basically, anyone can start automating their work. Then there was the invention of the internet. Now we can work with each other over cable all around the globe. And while I was going through college, there was the invention of smartphone, which enabled us to work anywhere. And when I was about to graduate college, Bitcoin came to the mind sphere of the college kids around my campus. And it created, for the first time ever in digital space, an objective information. If you think about information before blockchain, there was no objective information. Every information was controlled by a certain person or an entity that can be changed at any time. So it was always a subjective information. But in the invention of Bitcoin and the blockchain, the underlying technology, now we could have a objective information that people can trust. So I saw that as an opportunity to do something big. And since then, I got fascinated with the technology and building on top ever since. Founded my company Glua in 2012 and have been building blockchain technology and services ever since.
Most people don't realize 2012 is so early to be starting something in
I feel so old every time I meet new people.
I came first across Bitcoin in 2010 and I didn't do much about it. Of course, everything is clearer in hindsight. So I absolutely respect people who went in big time in the space that early. And starting a crypto startup in 2012, it's like starting a car company in 1890. So our industry is still so new and it's now worth nearly 4 trillion, which is nearly same size as GDP of Japan or India or something like that, which is crazy to think about how far the industry has come from in just last 15 years. What problem did you want to solve when you started Glua?
So when I started Glua, there was this problem of isolated, fragmented payment. So there was no solution for global cross-border payments. And there were Visa, there was MasterCard, but many card issuers block automatically if you're trying to make overseas payments, especially online. And what I wanted to initially build at Glua is Bitcoin payment, basically borderless e-commerce platform. That was the initial product idea that I built. And after finishing that product, what I learned is that people didn't care about the e-commerce part that much, but people were loving the Bitcoin payment part. So there were people using Bitcoin payment, and that generated sufficient amount of revenue to attract VCs to invest in my company. 500 startups, now rebranded as 500 Global, found me through that product and then gave us the first check. Then I flipped my company from a Korean company to US company. That was 2016, October.
Fantastic. And coming back to present day, can you tell me a bit more about Spacecoin and how does Spacecoin work and what problems does
Right.
Spacecoin solve?
After moving to San Francisco in 2016, there was the boom of ICO, and Ethereum was recently born, and now ICO happened, and now people were building their own blockchains. And that inspired me to think of a new way to use the blockchain technology, which inspired me to invent Credit Coin. So Credit Coin was the project that we solved the cross-border credit issue. So much ideal capital just sitting in a bank account, practically earning zero interest rate in the developed market. And on the other hand, there in the emerging market, there were high yield opportunities that's uninvested. So we wanted to cross these two dots using blockchain, allowing people in the emerging market not only being able to raise overseas, but also to build credit history on top of blockchain so that they can use it for the future credit assessment and basically build credit and financially uplift themselves. And throughout lifetime of this project, we invested over 100 million in loans, deployed the loans to over 2 million people on the mission of banking the unbanked. And while we were on that mission, what we have learned is that many of the unbanked were also unconnected. They had no internet connection whatsoever. So if you're not online, there's no way for us to solve your unbanked problem. And that inspired us to think about the connectivity. Initially, we wanted to use existing technology or services like Starlink. But the problem with Starlink is that it's too expensive. So you have to pay about $600 to get the satellite dish. You have to pay about $150 per month as a subscription. And when our target demographic GDP per capita is $2,000, this is not feasible. We tinkered around the idea and researched if there's a way to reduce the cost. And we also learned that thanks to SpaceX, the whole space industry is getting commoditized, meaning that it's now so much cheaper to build and launch satellites. So at scale, we are projecting our satellite cost all baked in, including the launch, will be about $200,000. And we had that aha moment that we learned that we can actually build a decentralized constellation of telecommunication satellites. And $200,000 was not $100 or $10, but it's cheap enough for other people to own, build, and launch their own satellites to creating a decentralized network of satellites. So ultimately, we can achieve the internet back in the days, which was a peer-to-peer network, completely decentralized internet infrastructure, which doesn't exist anymore, and achieve the next level of net neutrality, which became the ultimate vision of Spacecoin. So currently, we are focusing on the mission of connecting the unconnected by focusing our technology development and lowering the data rate, but optimizing for more number of links, meaning that each satellite will optimize to serve more number of people instead of providing 4K Netflix streaming data rate, but enough data rate that we call lifeline services, meaning that you can make over the satellite financial transactions, messaging, or basic web browsing. With our first satellite, which we launched with SpaceX last year, December, we achieved the ground to space connectivity, testing and demonstrating our financial transaction over the satellite into the remote area. And we are about to launch 3 more satellites with SpaceX around the end of this year to demonstrate more technologies that we have built, including handover. If you have constellation of satellites, your phone has to be connected from one satellite to the next satellite, gracefully being handed over, inter-satellite link, and also combine these two. We are going to use inter-satellite link to allow satellites to compare notes, basically trying to see what is actual signal and what is noise, and building a stronger link between the space and the ground. And yeah, sorry, I think I digressed. So that's what we're currently doing.
That's very good. You were answering already my questions that I was about to ask. So that's all very relevant. I have so many questions around in this space. And I live in New Zealand. Last 25 years, I've spent most of my time in New Zealand. And there's a very big sort of growing space industry here, even though New Zealand is very small market, whether it's Rocket Lab or Dawn Aerospace. So there's quite a few number of aerospace companies here, and I read about a lot. And it's one of the few unicorn success stories because I think Rocket Lab's now worth 40 billion or something in the last few years. And I remember the struggles they had 15 years ago or 10, 12 years ago. And government has a venture fund and they had
Mhm.
the chance to invest in it at a like next to nothing valuation. And they didn't because, of course, no one believes in that. It's so hard to, like back in the days, to get people before SpaceX. If you wanted to launch satellites, no one believed in you. Everyone looked at you like crazy that this
Right.
is the domain of only large governments. You have to be US, EU, Japan, China, or India,
Right.
one of the like 7, 8 big countries to launch
Yeah. Yeah.
satellites and not anyone, like not a private enterprise. So everyone,
Yeah.
in this day and age today, what do you feel is the biggest challenge with launching satellites?
In terms of launching satellites, the biggest challenge, I think there's two basket of challenge. Well, the first basket will be the launch challenge. The second basket will be the challenge of building the actual satellite. Launch challenge is getting resolved really quickly. SpaceX is launching even twice a day. And there are more launch providers coming up in the market, including Rocket Labs that you have just mentioned. More and more launch options are being available, not just in the United States, but like you said, in New Zealand, there are launch providers in India and providers in Brazil, and so on and so forth. So that's getting resolved really quickly. So that's great for us. The second basket problem that we're resolving is building a satellite conceptually is not too different from building a PC. So
Yeah.
when you think about building a PC, you build the components, pieces, and devices from all different vendors and you assemble, right? It works because everybody is adhering to a standard and the quality of their components are above certain grade, right? When it comes to building satellite, if the ecosystem is not there yet, because this is still a very niche market and all the suppliers in the market are very small mom and pop shops. So they're not making hundreds of thousands of components every year, but they're maybe building like 10. And when you're not mass producing, the cost is not only expensive, but also the quality is not as good as the mass production level. That is getting better and better every year, but we have to find a good supplier, identify who's good at what and who can actually deliver in time, in quality. And that supplier Rolodex is the most important proprietary know-how that we currently built.
Yeah, fantastic. Do you see companies like SpaceX or other similar companies as your competitor, or do you see them as a partner? How do you see them?
In my perspective, we are serving a very different market. So I see companies like SpaceX, the Starlink is part of SpaceX, or any other centralized satellite-based ISPs as companies like Apple. So Apple created a smart concept of smartphone using iPhone and iOS. But if you think about the ecosystem, that's very centralized, very closed. Nobody else can build an iPhone. You can only buy an iPhone, right? But that kind of up close ecosystem has its merits. It will always exist, but the market always demanded a open source community. So for example, when Windows, even before Windows, there's Unix, and when there's centralized OS providers, people wanted the open source option. So they created Linux, right? When iOS came out and popular, people wanted the open source option. So they started focusing on Android and so on and so forth. Money, while the US dollar works and wire works, people wanted a trustless option. So they created Bitcoin. When it comes to computing, there's Azure and Google Cloud, but people still wanted a trustless option. So they created Ethereum, so on and so forth. So when it comes to connectivity, I think people will value an option that is trustless, open, and decentralized. So that is the market that we're going after, not the other end. We all believe there will be always two extremes, like closed but high quality, expensive products, but open, allowing you to do whatever you want. It's customization, more adaptable, more and allowing people to participate. easily.
Fantastic. That does make a lot of sense. Just thinking about adoption, how do you how do you go about getting adoption for this, especially the target market that you want to target? If they don't have internet and then you want to reach out to them, how do you do that?
I'll answer this question in two folds. So when we initiated this project, a Facebook project, the first thing that I did is talking potential clients because I wanted to validate the idea first. If nobody wants it, like there's no point in building it, right? So I went to government, I went to militaries, I went to telcos, and they all want this for a different reason. Many of the governments in the emerging market has been suffering for the unconnected population problem. Like roughly 60% of their population are unconnected.
Mhm.
And they have been promising that they will deliver the connectivity to the unconnected people for years and years, but they could never deliver yet because of the lack of technology and lack of capital. For example, provide internet connectivity using cable-based network across the globe. People project it will cost a couple hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And that amount of money that no government is willing to pay for or invest in. So it didn't really happen yet. When it comes to military, they want the option of owning the satellites in the constellation. They might not want to have the whole constellation because of the cost, but at least they want to know that a couple of the satellites in the constellation that they own and control, that nobody else can turn it off. They know it can happen. They saw it happening. So they want to have that option. Another option they would like this, they want to build their own satellite so they can customize it. Maybe they want to have a special satellite that has a different feature or different capabilities or whatever special military reasons that they have, they want to have that option. And the third category, the telcos, if you think about telcos, it's very interesting because they're a local business. While they're one of the largest companies in each country, but they're local business. Telco in United States does not serve anyone outside the country. And the problem with them deploying their own constellation is that the constellation will be 90% of the time will be out of the site because you have, for the latency issue, you have to deploy low Earth orbit satellites, which naturally has to go around the globe, meaning that 90% of the time, the satellite you paid is not servicing you. So this is a very wasteful. So a local telco cannot compete against Starlink, which is providing global service. And we are providing their opportunity for them to share the satellites across different regions. So Uber for satellite concept, and they are interested in working with us for that reason. So these three, more of a B2B or B2G clientele, are interested in working with Spacecoin for those reasons. And when it comes to the retail users, I usually say internet is the most addictive drug that people have invented. So when it becomes available, I think it will sell itself. So I'm not too worried about getting the retail adoption.
What I had read, of course, please correct me if I'm wrong. You are the expert on this, that if it's in a low Earth orbit, you need, I think, something like 66 satellites or something to cover the Earth. First of all, how many satellites does it take? And how long will it take Spacecoin to reach that level? And how many people can it serve once you reach that level? Can it serve tens of millions of people? Can it serve 100 people? I have no idea.
So the capability of a constellation or a satellite really depends on what kind of satellite you build. You can build a large and very powerful satellites to provide more data rate, more number of people, or you can deploy a bunch of smaller satellites, which will provide more uptime or coverage, but it can be weaker. So it's actually a technical decision that we have to figure out. Through the testing of our first satellite and our next satellite constellation, we'll be able to have a better data. But what we currently believe is that we will have a first initial constellation of 10. And then from there, we will add more satellites to beef up the network for the more number of links and higher data and so on and so forth. So our goal currently is to have the 10 satellites. And ideally, even at 10, if we can have a participation of the partners that we are working with, so that it can be more decentralized, that will be a better ideal scenario for us.
Fantastic. That does make sense. But once you have that constellation of 10 satellites, how many people would you be able to serve theoretically if there was a really good adoption?
I think that can serve 1 million per region.
Oh, fantastic. And how many regions would that be?
So since this is a
Yes.
constellation going around the globe, and we are going to
Yeah.
target the equator region, and we are strategically targeting the most populated countries of each region.
Yes.
So Nigeria, of Africa, 250 million people, and
Mm.
Indonesia. So
Yeah,
across these three countries, there are 850 million unconnected population. I think we have an ample amount of potential users that we can address.
fantastic. Yeah, that's very clear. So, how does it work financially? Number one, who pays for it? And how do they pay? Do they use Spacecoin to pay? Do
Mhm,
governments chip in? Because this, as soon as you connect people, whether you connect them via physical cities, via physical highways, trains, internet,
mhm,
anything, the GDP of the
mhm.
country grows. So this is such a huge development
Yeah.
issue. Do governments chip in this sort of project, or do people have to pay privately on their own? And also, what currency do they pay with?
So I think the model that will work initially will be people going through local telcos. It can be us or it can be a telco partner that we partner up with locally. And they'll pay fiat to the telco, and the telco, on the behalf of their users, pay Spacecoin to the network.
Fantastic. That makes sense. What would you say would be your biggest, boldest vision for Spacecoin in, let's say, 10 years from now? Where would you like to see it?
I want Spacecoin to be a standard when it comes to communicating in space. And also, I want Spacecoin to be a standard when it comes getting connected from point A to point B, ideally, even from ground. And basically, I want to change the status quo of the centralized internet to become a decentralized internet that no one country or service provider can censor or control your connectivity. That anyone who has capability of using a computer should be able to get connected to the internet without going through a third party. I think that will be the ultimate vision of Facebook.
Fantastic. And what would you do differently? Let's
Mhm.
say if you were starting Glua now in 2025 instead of 2012.
Do I know what I know?
Exactly, knowing everything.
So throughout the lifetime of Glua, I started dozens of projects. Some succeed, so some failed. I'll probably won't do projects that failed and focus on the project that works.
Yeah. Hindsight is amazing, right?
Yeah, it's like in hindsight, is knowing that how things will end up. Would you still date that girl? If you knew, maybe you wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
But in hindsight, if I know what I know already, I'll do what works for me and not do what doesn't work for me.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. What's on your say, what's one of your biggest challenges currently building Glua, Spacecoin, or any of the other projects that you are involved in?
So I think my biggest challenge is that SpaceCoin is a very ambitious project on the engineering level as well. Not only because this is a huge project, but also because it's the joint of three very different fields of engineering. So it's a joint of space, joint of
Yes.
blockchain, joint of telecommunications. And they don't know each other and they never had to work with each other, especially telco, crypto, and space and crypto. And when I talk to these different groups of engineers that we have, I find it very amazing. What I find very amazing is that they're all very confident and comfortable with their field. They're just worried about the other two. So in between, be managing them and also orchestrating them to understand each other enough and trust each other enough so that they don't worry about the trivial stuff of other field and waste their mind space thinking about stuff that they don't need to solve and or have to think about. Oh, so that is my current challenge, and I have to build this hybrid team to make the project successful.
You have the challenges and problems that only you would have in the world because I know hardly any projects trying to solve these things that you're trying to, which is at the cross section of these very different industries. But I do believe that real magic happens at the cross section of two different industries when you merge biology and chemistry, or when you merge
Yeah,
physics and
right,
chemistry, or
right.
you come up with a completely new different field and you build a whole new genre of
A-
products and
a-
jobs. I do feel like it could be something very big. It's kudos to you for thinking big. It's often so many founders that I meet, I feel like they don't think big enough. So it's always refreshing to meet ambitious people.
Thank you.
What's one bold prediction that you have about how would money look like in 2030, let's say? That's just 5 years away.
Before 2020, I had a pretty comfortable vision of the future. Felt like I see how the future is going to roll out. But
Mhm.
these days, things are changing so fast. It's really hard to make a prediction. A couple of things that I'm thinking these days is that we'll have AI that's good enough, if information processing wise, it's good enough as a person. I am not sure if AI will have a desire or willpower to be delivering things autonomously. I'm not sure how that's going to happen. So basically, I think we are going to the direction where AI is going to solve the UI problem. If I say something, the AI will try to figure out what I want and how to deliver it by communicating with me verbally, and then get the information that I want. Given the robotics catch up with AI, now we will give that AI a body to do physical things that the current AI cannot deliver. And
Yeah.
I think when that happens, it's really hard for me to imagine that world. I think it will be totally different. I think the social structure and economy will be almost will change faster than the last 50 years. And another, since you asked about money, another thing that I think about the cross section of AI and crypto is that
Yeah.
crypto will be the default currency for AIs. And so I think 99% of the crypto transaction will be done by AI agents at that point.
Yeah, I can believe that. The another thing I find very interesting is I don't know if you're following the rise of Unitree, the robotics company.
I wasn't
I think you would find it very interesting. So basically, it's Boston Dynamics. So it's like the dog and the
humanoid.
bipedal humanoid type thing. But basically, same thing made in China by Unitree for 1600 USD instead of 80 to 120,000 USD.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's very different. When it's 1600, any middle class family can afford it. If you can
Mm,
afford to buy a large flat screen TV or an iPhone,
mm,
you can
mm,
afford now a robot to
mm,
help you with
mm.
lifting things in the house, with physical labor, companionship, and all those type of things. They'll only get cheaper. TVs only got cheaper. Phones, everything only gets cheaper,
Yeah,
especially the older models. They will need some form of connectivity. And in remote areas where they
yeah.
would be the most useful, that's where I see a very
Space
bright
coin.
future for Spacecoin. Yeah, exactly. Now you see where I'm going to. I do see a very bright future. And the thing is that those robot dogs or robot humans or whatever you call them, humanoids, they won't have a birth certificate. They won't have a government ID. They won't be able to open a bank account unless banks suddenly overnight change. But opening a DeFi, MetaMask wallet, or whatever, it's possible today without
Yeah,
changing any
yeah.
regulation, without changing anything. And then when a robot is doing a job for another robot, whether it's a bot in computer or a physical bot now, in this day and age, crypto is the way to transfer value. It makes a lot of sense. It's just the timeline. We don't know where there would be mainstream
Uh,
adoption. Are we 6 years away? I don't know. That's the point that's challenging. So I'm very hopeful for this industry. Coming back to Spacecoin, what's on your immediate roadmap for the next 6 to 12 months?
so Spacecoin is expected to get minted within this year. And we are also launching the 3 more satellites, which will allow us to test and demonstrate our next level of capability. And from then on, we will spend about 12 months to design and build our product level constellation satellites. And we'll be talking to the potential clients and partners that would launch the first constellation with us and prepare for our first launch. And then at that point, I think people will start making crypto transactions, starting with crypto transactions through satellites.
Yep, that sounds absolutely amazing. And in order to achieve that, do you have a ask? Are you looking at hiring more people? Are you looking at raising or some technical help? Anything else? Feel free to share with the community and the audience.
So as a founder and the CEO, I'm focusing on providing the vision and raising the fund that's required to deliver the vision. I have raised and I am raising with the very helpful VC partners that we currently are working with. And when the Spacecoin gets launched and get listed on exchanges, that community will also finance and build the project with us together, sharing the growth. And with that capital, we are projected to hire about 200 people working on this project.
Amazing. That sounds absolutely amazing. Today, I would like to thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, learning about Spacecoin and learning about how you intend to bank the unbanked and give access to internet to such a large portion of our planet. So thank you once again for being ambitious and keep going.
Thanks for your invitation. I really enjoyed the conversation, Sam.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening or watching this episode of the Web3 with Sam Kamani podcast. By now, you know the drill. Leave a comment or share this episode with a friend and leave a review. I would love to hear from you. So that's why my DMs are open. Reach out to me, especially if you are a founder building a product in Web3. Then I would love to hear from you. What are your challenges? Is there anything that I can help you or my community can help you with? Thank you once again and wish you best of luck in building your startup or your project.